Our next speaker, somebody who lives that high risk, high reward concept. He lived it every day. Bob Schultz is here with us today. During his 30 years in the Navy, he commanded the Naval Special Warfare Group 2 in Mill Creek, Virginia. He was in charge of all the SEAL teams on the East Coast. Served as the Director of Leadership and Character Development in the U.S. Naval Academy. After he left his service with the Navy, he became the Director of Master of Science in Global Leadership Program in the School of Business Administration at the University of San Diego. Serves on the Advisory Council of the National Outdoor Leadership School, and he instructs in at least one NOLS expedition each year. So a pretty active guy, and he's defined that concept of mastering chaos. So please, everybody, join me in welcoming Bob Schultz.
I've already learned a lot this morning. From Brad and Larry, I learned that I'm in the right line of work. Because it looks like smart route planning makes fighting a war look easy. Let me begin with a story. I was asleep on my cot. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning, in May of 1978. This cot is in a 20-man tent, one of those green canvas things that you've seen on television if you watch MASH. We had the sides rolled up to let the air in. We're in the middle of a field out in North Carolina, surrounded by the swamps and the jungles of North Carolina. About 100 yards away, there was another 20-man tent, and our staff headquarters was there. We were part of the Navy's, and actually the U.S. military's largest exercise of the year. It included all the ships of the Navy, Air Force, Army, Marine Corps. We're practicing fighting a huge campaign, and our part was the Special Operations piece. And I was part of a SEAL platoon in this little corner of North Carolina doing our SEAL missions. And in this 20-man tent, I was there with a bunch of other SEALs. I'm laying there asleep about 9 o'clock. And I hear a helicopter come in and land about, maybe 100, 125 yards away. They're pretty noisy. And I kind of open an eye and I look up and I see the helicopter land. Rotors keep turning. I see a fellow run out from the helicopter over to the headquarters tent. I'm thinking to myself, this doesn't look good. The reason I'm sleeping at 9 o'clock in the morning is because I've been up all night long on another mission in the exercise. I and 3 of my fellow SEALs had done a reconnaissance mission, and we got back about 4:30 in the morning. We'd gone to check out a site that where bad guys might be. We might have to see what they were doing and report back. And we were doing this every night. We'd have another one the next night. We came back about 5 in the morning, cleaned up our stuff, did a quick debrief, quick get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, because about 11, we're going to get up and get our mission for the next night. Well, by the way, this is the pattern of activity of our special operators and our fighters 30 years later in Iraq and Afghanistan, on mission every night. My son was over in Iraq. He was telling me, Dad, we're going out almost every night. 1978, we didn't anticipate that one, but we were still practicing for whatever war might come. So there I am back in my cot. I'm looking up and I see this guy run over there, thinking to myself, let me go back to sleep, maybe this will go away. I open my eyes again and I see a young staff officer running from this headquarters tent right over to us. And I'm thinking to myself again, now this really doesn't look good. And he gets over, and I'm kind of awake, pick my head up a little bit, and he gets over to us and says, guys, hurry up, grab your stuff, we gotta go. I'm kind of, what? What are you talking about? He says, get your guns, get your stuff, get over to the tent right now, you gotta go. For what? What mission? Just grab your stuff and go. Well, by this time, the guys that I'd been out with the night before, who were sleeping pretty close to me, they're waking up and they're looking at what's going on. And I asked a couple of questions, and this guy was in a panic. Just grab your stuff and go. Get your guns and get your H gear and come on over. So I looked at the 3 guys that I've been out with the night before. Our magazine's still full? Yeah, we were in blanks at that point. Get your boots, let's go see what this is all about. The other SEALs farther on the tent, they're just trying to pretend like this isn't happening. They're keeping their heads down, they're smart. I happened to be the one who was closest to where the guy came in. So we amble, and this guy's still in a panic. Hurry up, hurry up! Rotors on the helicopter still turning. So we walk over to the tent, and I walk into the tent, and I see my boss, who's running this task group, they're kind of standing off to the side. I'm not sure what's going on either. And there's 2 senior officers there. One of them is a SEAL captain, and another is a Marine colonel. And they look at who's the officer, because we looked like a mess. Some old face paint on it, our clothes were all bedraggled and dirty. I said, sir, I'm the officer. He says, you ready to go? To do what? You have your guns, you have some ammunition, you got some water. Yes, sir. Okay, we're ready to go. Sir, wait, what are we doing? We're going out right now, we're going to take over the 2nd Fleet flagship. What? You gotta be messing me. And just come on, let's go. We gotta go. Admiral Kidd, the admiral of the fleet, who's in charge of this whole exercise, he just told them, go get some SEALs, go take over the flagship, right now. So we followed this colonel and the captain out to the helicopter, rotor still turning, kind of jogging. And I'd ask him, so what are we going to do? So we'll brief you on the helicopter. We've got to be out of the ship in about 15 minutes. Take it over the mountain with me. A big ship. There's 4 of us. So we get on the helicopter, and he says, okay, here's what's going to happen. They think that the helicopter coming in is the admiral's helicopter. And when we land on the flag on the back of the ship, the captain's going to go with all the pomp and circumstance. We're going to get off and pull him aside and tell him that this is an exercise. You guys are guerrillas. They're going to take over a ship. And we're going to go to the bridge, then you got it. So figure it out. We got about 6 or 8 minutes. So I get with my guys, and we start talking about what happens when we get on the bridge, and this, and we things back and forth. Sure enough, we land on the Mount Whitney, which is a good-sized ship. Captain of the ship comes up, and these 2 guys, he's looking for the admiral. The captain and the colonel go down, pull him aside, start talking to him. I'm following him down the steps, and I'm kind of standing there waiting, and I look at the captain. He does not have a happy look on his face. He's not a happy camper to hear that these bedraggled guys are going to take over his ship. But sure enough, we follow them up to the bridge, and the captain and the colonel step back and say, you got it. So at that point, how many of y'all saw the movie Captain Phillips? Anybody see the movie Captain Phillips? A few of you? Great movie, by the way. Really recommend it. But remember that scene where the Somali guy is on the bridge and he's having this face-to-face with Tom Hanks? You're nodding like, you know. And he's kind of going, look at me, you look at me. I'm the captain now. That was me. Keep doing that. I'm telling the people on the bridge, I'm in charge now. And just like in the Captain Phillips movie, I start trying to get the captain, tell him what I want done, and get his people to do it. He's playing this deception game with me and trying to manipulate and tell me he can't do this, can't do that. Finally, I get tired of it. I said, tell one of my guys, take the captain out on the wing wall and shoot him. The captain goes, of course, this is all exercise, and I get on the 1MC, which is a ship's communication system. And I start trying to spout off these phrases that I remembered from a few years earlier hearing on the college campus about capitalist pigs and imperialist running dogs and the exploiters of the poor and all this stuff and why we're here to take on the great Satan and all of that stuff. Just kind of peppering my comments with that, and I just killed the captain, and we're going to keep killing people unless you will cooperate with us. That was, the next hour was exciting. The excitement factor kept climbing. Because then the Marine Corps, who was on the ship, they weren't going to let this happen. They start trying to make runs on us, and our guys are shooting blanks at them, and they're shooting blanks at us. And with about an hour later, the Marines assaulted the bridge, overwhelmed us. We had a big firefight. We were all killed. And the two senior officers, when we're all just shooting our blanks, and blanks are going all over, they said, okay, stop, stop. Okay, we're done. Come on, Lee. Grabbed our guns, we followed them back, got on the helicopter, flew back to that muddy field in North Carolina. Helicopter landed. They said, good job, guys. Way to go. We're out of here. So we walk over to the headquarters tent. I tell my boss what happened, and he's shaking his head, and we're kind of, this is all, we've been there like maybe an hour and 20 minutes earlier. We've been in there with those other two guys. And I said, okay, can we go back to sleep? And he goes, nope. In about a half an hour, you're going to get your warning order for your mission tonight. So this is an idea of the kind of chaos that I grew up in. A couple of examples here. We were laying there thinking that we were on our pattern, and all of a sudden this guy comes in and throws this at us. And we had to go do what we were told with what we had at the time, without hardly any information, without the right time, the right information, the right equipment. We did the best we could. And it turned out that, in fact, it worked out pretty well. I mean, we all died, killed a bunch of them. But for the objectives of what we were trying to do, and had we been terrorists, we would have expected to die in that deal. But also when we came back and we were looking for that, hey, we just done good. We just went out and took over the flagship. Gonna get a break, right? The war doesn't stop. You got a mission tonight. Get over it. Get ready. Another interesting piece of that is Admiral Kidd. Admiral Kidd, four-star admiral, been around since World War II. He knew how his Navy operated. They spent all year long, a staff of people, putting together this very detailed exercise plan with a timeline and all these objectives that needed to be met to take advantage of this opportunity. And all the people in the organization are trying to meet the timeline and put checks in all the boxes so at the end we can congratulate ourselves that we did the exercise and everything succeeded, we're heroes, many beat you, we can go home. But he also knew that this is not the way war is. So he just, watching all this happen and everything was working just right, all the things were taking place on schedule, he decided to throw some caca into the game. And I was the caca. And my guys were the caca. To stir things up and create more chaos, which is actually a more realistic approach to the way wars are fought. Now, the people in the doing the exercise, they didn't like this at all. Because they were working the process, they were working the timeline. And throwing this in upset all kinds of things on the timeline. Admiral Kidd didn't care, because he didn't care about the timeline. He cared about getting his people ready to deal with the fog of war and the chaos of war. I'm asked regularly, how do SEALs get comfortable in chaos? And I'm usually asked that, I've been asked that 2 or 3 times, by business leaders who are looking for whether there's something that SEALs do that might transfer to help them deal better with the chaos of the marketplace. And I respond, SEALs don't get comfortable in chaos. Nobody should be comfortable in chaos. Chaos is dangerous. Chaos puts at risk the things that are important to you. When you're in a chaotic environment, that's not the time to kind of lean back and start smoking a cigarette. That's a time when you need to be most alert, most on your toes, most agile, trying to calm yourself inside, ready to move quickly to get out of the way if danger is coming your way, also ready to spring quickly to take advantage of opportunities. Because chaos is not only dangerous, it's also an opportunity. There are opportunities there that the bold and the smart see and they take advantage of. Chaos is only chaos until you see what the patterns are. The smart people sit back and watch the chaos, very alert, very tuned in, make sure that sucker punch doesn't catch it by surprise, but figuring out where the patterns are, and then when they see opportunities, they go. Chaos is by its own nature unstable. It will resolve itself into some stability. And when it resolves itself into stability, somebody is going to benefit from that. Why not you? Why not me? And the way we do that is by keeping our wits about us, not yielding to our fear, but paying attention and looking for opportunities. Now, over the last 10 years, the Navy SEALs have begun to call themselves the Masters of Chaos. The Masters of Chaos. Well, there's certainly some bravado in that, but here's what they mean when they say that. They look for opportunities to go into chaos. They train for chaos all the time. And opportunities where bad guys are creating chaos are opportunities for a well-integrated, highly trained force to go and impose their will on the chaos and shape the stability that's going to grow out of chaos so that it reflects the values that they want rather than the values of our enemies. Because normally, when we get called in to go someplace, so in a chaotic environment that somebody else, the bad guys, Al-Qaeda, people whose interests aren't the same as ours and values aren't the same as ours, they've created that chaos so that they can then shape the stability that follows to fit their needs and their agenda and not ours. So that is what SEALs do, and elite special forces units around the world, but particularly in the United States, train themselves to go into chaotic environments and look for those opportunities to shape the stability that's going to follow. Chaos is going to resolve itself into stability. Who are going to be the winners and who are going to be the losers? I recently spoke at a risk management conference. They asked me to come talk about what SEALs and elite special forces units do to manage risk. What are the risk management approaches to these military units? And in thinking about this conference, I realized that risk management and chaos are very closely related. I mean, what is risk management? Is managing uncertainty, and what is uncertainty or what is chaos but an abundance of uncertainty? And I gave them the three pillars of how SEALs and other elite special units, the three pillars of their risk management philosophy, which I would also say are the three pillars of how they prepare to deal with chaos. The first is screen and select the right people. People who are not afraid of uncertainty, are able to rise to the challenges, can be bold and innovative and creative. Create a process which selects and screens those kind of people. And then once you get them, the second pillar, train them hard, keep them challenged, keep them excited about their work. Doing what I was doing in that muddy field in North Carolina so many years ago. On my toes, responding to the things that came, and thereby developing confidence in myself and my team. The third pillar, prepare for bad luck. Prepare for things to go wrong. They are going to go wrong, and you will best be able to respond if you prepare for it. So would these three pillars work in the business setting? Of course they would. Ask any entrepreneur or any bold business leader, how important is it to get the right people on your team? They're all going to say, it's really important to get bold, aggressive people engaged with your organization right off the bat. Jim Collins, in his book Good to Great, he called it, first you get the right people on the bus. He'll also talk about how important it is to keep these people engaged, keep them excited about their work. Really good people will get bored if you clip their wings and don't let them take risks and be creative. They'll leave. Anybody familiar with Daniel Pink's book, Drive? And he talks about how what motivates people is their desire for autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And as far as being prepared for bad luck, we all know that the marketplace is turbulent. And it happens to everybody eventually. Jim Collins wrote another book dealing with this very issue of chaos. It's called Great by Choice. And the subtitle is Uncertainty, Chaos, and Luck. Why Some Thrive in Spite of All These. And the philosophy that he lays out is very familiar to those of us who've grown up and spent our lives in the world of special operations. And I'll talk a little bit more about that a little later on towards the end of my remarks. But at this point, I want to talk a little bit about how we, the SEALs, select and screen and select the right people to get in our Zodiac. I've got a little video. This is online. It's available to you if you Google Class 242 and Center or SEALs SWIC. You'll see the whole thing. But I've cut a video of just the first phase, which is called the motivation phase, which is where the people who get through this phase, 95% of them get through the whole training. And this phase is when most of the people quit. Let's go ahead, Chris, and show that video. It's about 8 minutes long. Kind of fun.
The United States Navy SEAL platoons project power far beyond their small 16-man size. The success of their mission doesn't just rely on weapons or technology, but on the specialized training of the individual SEAL operator.
This video was actually shot in Panama, and I was in command down there when we did this.
They come from all walks of life, from all across the American landscape. Most have some measure of athletic ability. Over a third have college degrees. They all share a common goal: to become a member of the most elite team in the world, the United States Navy SEALs. Each year, 600 to 800 young men attempt the Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, or BUDS.
This is a little bit of propaganda, but it's actually a pretty good look at the basic selection process, which takes place just down the road from us here.
Transition from sailor to SEAL. This is the story of one such group, Class 224.
You get treated like the absolute lowest form on earth, and you really got to find it within yourself to say, I know I can do it, I know I can finish it, I know I can do anything they throw at me. That's where it builds character. You find out if you got it in yourself. If you can just block everything out and just focus on that brass ring, of getting through this 6 months of hell.
First phase is with the phase that's going to separate the men from the boys. These guys come here, and we don't know what to expect, so we're going to push them hard to see what they have. Guys that want to be here, no matter what we do, or sick, they want to be a SEAL, they're going to be a SEAL. That's all there is to it.
Physically, Bud's is a real butt kicker. Just having the mental fortitude of not only trying to get through the PT sessions, but also getting through the lack of sleep, having instructors on your back, being hurt all the time. All those things start taking a play during the day, and it's just having the idea of there's nothing that's going to stop me from finishing this training or finishing this evolution. That's what gets you through it.
I believe that Bud builds teamwork and character by leading out the weak, bringing the strong together to survive the training. I don't think any one man can make a run through Bud.
This stage is just take you guys a little bit. Stay on it.
I'd say the obstacle course is never below expectations. It's one of the best training you can get. Because you gotta think on your feet, you gotta act, you gotta move, you gotta be fast, you gotta be safe. You can really hurt yourself. First thing is first phase, pretty high. Like I say, it's a really fast-paced phase. And these guys are constantly moving, grooving every second of every day, except when they're eating. So the guys, they hear about SEAL training, like, well, all you have to do is run, all you have to do is no course, anything like that. It's not really that big a deal. But once you start putting everything together, the days are endless. That's when our guys decide that this really isn't for me. I don't want to be wet. I don't want to be cold. This pace right here is not for me. That's what's going to happen when they leave here to get a SEAL team. The pace is just like that. It never ends.
It's just about everything in Bud is a timed evolution or it's a race. It builds camaraderie with the guys. They take their boats and they'll race out to the surf zone. Sometimes the boats will flip over on them because the surf gets so big.
It's quite an experience to be paddling a rubber boat and facing this 8-foot wall of water coming at you. It's going to destroy you and send you tumbling around. And there's almost like a washing machine effect in the water.
What we're looking for from a recruit, number one, he has to have the physical skills to complete the training. Two, he has to have the mental aptitude, because we're not just a bunch of knuckle draggers. You have to have some mental skills as well.
There are some knuckle draggers in here, though.
We don't look for any kind of personality. There's all sorts of different kind of personalities in the teams. But we're looking for a guy that's willing to sacrifice and can work well with others in a teamwork environment.
I think the evolutions that cause most problems are the water evolution. Some of these kids are from Wyoming, different places where they haven't even seen the water, or at least the surf zone, and they're not really too comfortable in the water. And you're doing drown proofing where your hands are tied behind your back, your feet are tied up. They don't like that.
Drown proofing, I think it's more of a mental thing than a physical evolution. It's all about trying to stay calm and being comfortable in the water. Half of our class failed it the first time they went through, and I think it's because they have a mental block of the idea of not having control. You just gotta, have confidence in yourself and saying, I've done this before, I can float on the water. 3,000 guys have done it before I have, why can't I do it? It's a mental thing.
Hell Week, the most dreaded week of Bloods, is the ultimate test of one's physical and mental motivation. A round-the-clock regimen of intensive physical training and harassment, with as little as 4 hours of sleep during the entire week.
Let's go! Get your butt up here! All the way up with the rocks! And hit all the way up!
Hell Week is 5.5 days long. The class is divided into boat crews. Teamwork is a key issue during Hell Week. They're up for 5 days doing various evolutions that stress teamwork. Cold, wet conditions again come into factor. And this is an indicator of what kind of a man is going to come out the other end.
You'll never be challenged anywhere the way that you're challenged in Hell Week. I mean, it'll test your soul to the very core of your being. You'll know exactly what your limitations are and what you're capable of doing when you're done with Hell Week.
And then not being able to sleep and just, falling asleep standing up. During Hell Week, I found I could fall asleep while I was underneath the boat while running.
It's just a week of intense emotion and pain and cold and misery. And sometimes you thought it couldn't get any worse. But it did. Guys went away. The only thing I can say about them is that they decided it wasn't going to be part of their life.
You have to want it. Because if you don't, or you're not sure, and you just come to try to find out, you won't be around.
You can hold that, Chris, just a moment. So this obviously is not appropriate for your organizations. I hope. But if you have the impression this is all about the physical aspects, you're wrong. Obviously, you have to be ready to do the physical stuff. But in my Buds class, the best athletes quit. It really is a mind game, and it's also a creating of the culture. And the culture is be adaptable, be ready to do things that you don't want to do, no matter, and when you're uncomfortable, and keep doing them. One of my friends who was and ran the Buds program for a while, he said that he had his instructors do what he called random acts of instructor violence. And what that meant was when the students thought they'd done everything right and they had deserved a break, they punished them. And sometimes when they screwed up, they let it go. And the students get to where they never quite know what's coming. And that's a good thing, because they have to deal with whatever comes. And it isn't always logical in war, in peace, in business, and route planning, that everything you do, everything right, automatically you get the right result. Other stuff happens, and you've got to deal with it. And I think that was also a lesson that Admiral Kidd was teaching the fleet when he threw me and my team in as a random act of admiral violence into his exercise. Now, when this video was made, which was about 14 years ago, and by the way, BUD/S is essentially the same. It's essentially the same as when I went through in 1975. They had their graduation at the end of 6 months. And then they would go to a SEAL team and get an additional 4 or 5 months of intermediate level skill training, and then they would go into a SEAL platoon to deploy. Since then, they moved that intermediate level training back to BUD/S, and so now the training is actually about 12 to 14 months long. And when they graduate, they get their badge, and you can go right. Some of these guys will graduate from BUD/S and go right into war. Kids that I knew graduated, had a graduation. I'm going to show you the graduation ceremony, or a little piece of one. They packed their stuff, went out to the Little Creek, or there was a team in San Diego, and within 2 weeks they were on an airplane heading for Iraq or Afghanistan and joined their guys over there. They were that ready to go. Okay, let's see the rest of the next couple of minutes. It's just a graduation ceremony, which I think is inspiring. I go to these whenever I can. They inspire me.
Very few ever get to where you are today. You only graduate from BUD/S training once. It marks the completion of the toughest military training in the world. In a society where mediocrity is too often the standard and too often rewarded, there is intense fascination with men who detest mediocrity, who refuse to define themselves in conventional terms, and who seek to transcend traditionally recognized human capabilities. This is exactly the type of person BUD/S is meant to find. The man who will find a way to complete each and every task to the best of his ability. The man who will adapt and overcome any and all obstacles.
It's a big thrill at the end. You can actually ring the bell. You're scared of the bell. Because the bell means comfort. You ring the bell, you get a warm meal.
I mean, obviously everybody says, you know, this is the first step, still a lot to come and stuff, but this is a big step, so. I feel on top of the world today. It's been 6 months of arduous training, and it's just, I can't even describe how I feel. There's some points of training where you feel like you can't make it through one more day, but you press on hour to hour, minute to minute, and eventually you get to this point. The person who wants to be here and ends up becoming a SEAL is the person who wants to be down inside, and if he doubts it at all, then he just doesn't belong.
So I talked about the 3 pillars of how elite special units in the military prepare for chaos. One is select and train the right people, and this screens those people that are able to deal with the chaos and the uncertainty and the changing environment through this process. Rite of passage is kind of an acculturation. And then train them hard. It only gets more interesting after they finish here and go to their SEAL teams. And they find that, I found, and almost all of them find, that they are called on and find themselves in situations that are harder than anything they went through in BUD/S at some point in their career, and they think back, that's why. I'm going to fast forward from 1978 to 1981. Middle of the night. The Baltic Ocean. We're sitting in, I'm in a German submarine, sitting on the bottom. and about 60 feet of water, about 1,000 yards off the beach. And I'm with another one of the German Navy SEALs. I am an exchange officer. I was from 1980 to 82 with the German version of the Navy SEALs, the Kampfschwimmer Company. And they were stationed in Eckernford, Germany. I'm on an exercise with them. We were then, just like all the military, we were preparing ourselves to fight the Soviet Union when they came through Europe. So I'm in this submarine that's sitting on the bottom in the Baltic, about 10 o'clock at night. I'm in the torpedo room with my swim buddy, Oberbootsmann Peter Linke. In walks the commanding officer of the submarine. Also Männer, alles klar? Seid ihr bereit? Ich wünsche euch viel Glück. Also, einsteigen. Okay, you guys all set? You ready? Good luck. Go ahead, get in. At that point, my time to get into the torpedo tube. I needed the torpedo man to help me because I'm in a complete wetsuit. And I've got on my chest this big pure oxygen rebreather. And on my back, I have a small backpack with a piece of equipment in it that our mission is to swim into the beach and deliver this to a friendly agent and then come back out to the submarine. And this piece of equipment has been vacuum sealed. And so I've got this in my backpack. The torpedo tube's about this big. And I've got to go in fins first. And so they're holding me up as I get my fins into the torpedo tube and until I can get to where I can rest my weight on my elbows. And I can barely move. And as soon as I get in, I'm slowly scooching back into that torpedo tube until my fins hit the outer hatch. And as I'm doing that, Peter Rinke is also coming and facing me. And as he comes in, the light from the opening of the torpedo tubes gets darkened out. But I've got a flashlight. I'm the one with the flashlight. And when he comes in, we're face to face with each other. As he gets to me, and we hear one of the torpedo men say, "Alles klar, Männer? Wir schließen zu." You guys okay? We're closing up. Clank. The torpedo tube closes. We're in there looking at each other, give each other the thumbs up, and we start breathing on our pure oxygen rig. We breathe on it for a minute or two, and we're looking at each other, give each other the thumbs up. We're doing this to make sure that our rigs are good and that everything's clear, and if anything were to go wrong, at this point we're still dry, I can tap and they can open it up and let us out. At this point I give the knock, 2 knocks, to signal inside the submarine, rigs are good, we're ready. They acknowledge with the 2 knocks. About a few seconds later, we hear 3 knocks from them, telling us that they're ready to flood down the torpedo tube. And I acknowledge with 3 knocks by tapping the flashlight against the inside of the torpedo tube. We're sitting there looking at each other, and we start feeling that cold water climb into the torpedo tube. About 52 degrees. It was cold. And it climbs up, it sneaks into our wetsuits, and then it kind of starts climbing up, and we're looking at each other. And then the water climbs up, and that white light from the flashlight all of a sudden becomes faint, pale yellow, because the water is coming in from the ballast tanks of the submarine. It is oily, it's dirty, it's nasty, but we're breathing on our oxygen rigs until it climbs all the way up, past our mast, and gets to the top. And he and I are looking at each other with the flashlight on. I get the knocks from inside the torpedo tube telling us that they're done flooding the torpedo tube, they're ready to open the outside hatch. I acknowledge their knocks, and then we wait, and then we get the knocks from inside the torpedo tube that the outside hatch is open. I acknowledge, telling them I got it, and we're leaving. At that point, I'm going backwards until I feel my legs exit the submarine and go out into the water outside the submarine. As I get, and he's following me, Peter Rink is following me, and as I get my legs out, I turn off the lights to save our night vision, and And I exit, and I'm holding onto the hatch of the torpedo tube. And as Pederinka exits, I quickly hook a buddy line onto him because we got about this much visibility. It's dark down there and cold. And I can see the black mass of the submarine disappearing into the darkness to one side. Above me, about 40 feet above us, is the faint shimmer of the surface. And as Peter gets out, and I hook him up, and my job then is to feel around on the inside of the seal to the torpedo tube hatch to make sure that there's nothing that would interrupt the hatch resealing, and I tap inside the torpedo tube to let them know that the seal is clear, they can close the hatch, we're outside, we're leaving. At that point, he and I take off to the beach. We had a couple of things we had to go through to make sure that we were on track, and he's driving the compass. He's got a compass that's been set on the heading that we had planned inside the submarine. I'm his swim buddy. He's the more experienced diver. He's got his head down and he's going into the beach, keeping the compass needle between 2 points, and I'm swimming along with him as his swim buddy in case anything happens. Now, for those of you who've probably never done this, and I expect that's most of you, the torpedo tube thing sounds really difficult and uncomfortable. And swimming 1,000 yards underwater in the black of the Baltic Ocean into the beach also doesn't sound like a picnic. But for us, at that point, that was the easy part. That's what we could control. The Germans had a Mox torpedo tube in their swimming pool. And before anybody ever gets inside a torpedo tube, you're going inside there with all your rubber and your gear line. You're practicing it there in a very warm, permissive environment. And then you're doing it pierside with the submarines. You know, they put us in their torpedo tubes and get us out, put us in, flood it down, drain it, let us out, put us in, flood it down. We go outside, come back in. So this was easy. And swimming 1,000 yards underwater, we did that all the time. What we were worried about on this mission were the things that we couldn't control, the unknowns. This agent. Is he going to be there? Will there be other people on the beach? Will he do the right signals for us? Will the bona fides be correct? Will other factors that we're concerned about on that beach for us to do our mission, which is to get this piece of equipment to him? Then, let's assume all that goes well, finding our way back to the submarine. That's really tough. And we had a homing system which worked most of the time, by which we would interrogate a system inside the submarine which would respond at a discrete underwater frequency. It would give us range of this, but it didn't work all the time. This was an exercise, so if it didn't work, you know, we're still in the waters of Germany. There were safety boats out there for us, and so we weren't too concerned, but we wanted the exercise to go well. 8 years later, I'm a lieutenant commander, and we're doing a similar exercise in Norway with the Norwegian frogmen. And I'm in charge. We have a Navy SEAL and a Norwegian frogmen getting inside the torpedo tube, doing essentially the same process. As they were getting ready to go, I said, hey guys, you need to be prepared just in case the submarine isn't there when you come back. He looked at me. I didn't say, I just looked at him. Just need to be prepared. Because that can happen. They nodded. So on the exercise itself, the locking out of the torpedoes weren't great. They went in, and sure enough, they came back. The submarine wasn't there. I was on the submarine. It was all part of the plan. Throwing cockeye into the game. But they were ready. They were in dry suits. Water temperature was really cold up there. And they went back, and as you know, over the next 5 days, they escaped and evaded through Norway down the coast, and we picked them up about 20 miles farther down the coast. The specific designated time was the alternate pickup point in case the submarine wasn't there. Now what's interesting is just about a week ago, I had an email with the SEAL who was in there. He's a retired Master Chief now living up in Vermont. I said, hey, Bill, I told this story to my Toastmasters club. So I just told a story about when you went out to when you didn't come back to subway and you had to E&E through, escape and evade through Norway. He came back and said, Bob, that was one of the coolest things I did in my career. I love that. It's one of my favorite memories. Again, you got to pick the right kind of people that like doing this sort of thing. So we actually, again, the right kind of people, throw cockeye into the game, keep them on their toes. Now, fast forward about 17 years. Now I'm moving in to be the commanding officer of Naval Special Warfare Group 2. And Brad mentioned that I had the 5 SEAL teams in Little Creek, Norfolk, Virginia. And I was in charge also of 4 overseas units, one in Germany, Spain, Puerto Rico, and Panama. I've been the commanding officer of the unit in Panama, and I've been the executive officer of the unit in Spain. And while I was at those locations, I had a lot of frustrations with the support that I got from my staff, this headquarters that I was now in charge of. I kept feeling like I and my team were doing the heavy lifting. We were doing the work that the American taxpayers paid us to do. And yet, these guys on the staff acted like we worked for them. I said, no, they work for us. Their job is to support us doing the work. I walked in with an agenda. No, we're going to change things around a little bit here. I was a senior officer there, and so when I got there, I got my team together, started sharing some of my thoughts. And one of the guys on my staff said, I just got an MBA, and I think, sir, I think you need to read this book. And he gave me another Jim Collins book, Built to Last. Anybody heard of it or read it or seen it before? It's a book about how great companies have remained great for decades. And the chapter in there on company values and vision is fabulous. And I read that and said, that's what I want to do. So we as a team got together and crafted 4 key bullets that were going to be the drivers of my time in command. As we drafted them up, I had my command senior enlisted socialize these, see how they sounded to the guys, the troops in the field. They gave some feedback on possible misunderstandings, and we crafted up. Those 4 bullets I use in every single speech that I gave and every time I talked to troops, and they had an awful lot to do with chaos and how ready we were to deal with chaos. The first one, we run to the sound of the guns. That means where there's chaos, that's where we want to go. In the business world, it might be we're aggressively looking for new markets and new opportunities. Get us into where we're not. We'll figure it out. The second bullet, the center of gravity is forward. And that was my message to my staff and the teams there, that the American public doesn't pay us to train in San Diego and Little Creek. They pay us to prepare to go overseas. That's where the work is done, on the edges of the empire. Those are the people that are doing the things that we're getting paid to do. So the center of gravity is with them, not with us. The third bullet, we excel in ambiguous environments. Again, what's chaos but an ambiguous environment? We don't need to have all the information. We don't need to have all the gear. You put us in a situation, we will figure it out, because that's the kind of people we are. We're agile on our toes, we're smart, we're used to being in these ambiguous environments, and we can problem solve. Kind of like, I think, some of the points that you're going to be making here at this conference. My 4th bullet, which was keystone, we take care of each other and our families. We can't run to the sound of the guns. We can't have the center of gravity forward. We can't excel in ambiguous environments unless we take care of each other and we take care of our team. And our team is not, if we have to take care of integrating our team, and this is fundamental, and their families are part of it. We run to the sound of the guns, center of gravity is forward, excel in ambiguous environments, we take care of each other and our team and our families. There's one other point that I made in that process of coming into the job. I told my staff that nobody can say no to one of our subordinate commanders, any one of those SEAL teams, or one of the guys that are overseas. Nobody can say no to them except me. You can say yes. You have the authority to say yes. You have the authority to say, I disagree with this. I can't say yes. I can't say no. So what that did was the default answer was yes. And if the people who were working in the staff in the headquarters were uncomfortable, they'd say, I can't say no. If you're ready to go talk to the boss, you talk to him. And here's the reason why I don't think he'll support it, but I can't say no. Interesting what happened then. Every time that one of the bosses came to me after being resisted on a yes by people on my staff, and they came to me and put their credibility on the line with me to do something, all but one time I said yes. They knew that they had it on, that it was on the line. And every time they delivered, and it worked. The one time I said no was because the person who came to me was unaware of a policy issue that I was aware of from higher up, that this would have been counter to that. But when I told that story to a group of CEOs one time, one of them said, that reminds me of a friend of mine who took over a bank. The bank wasn't doing well. He became the president of the bank. And he told all his loan officers, he said, there's only one person in the bank that can say no to a loan. That's me. You can say yes, and you can say, I disagree, but I can't say no. And what that meant was the default answer was yes. Now, they made a couple of mistakes. Some of the younger guys and gals might have made a couple of mistakes, but the bank took off. Built better relationships with the community and built greater credibility. I'm going to conclude with coming back to great by choice. In this book, which you leaders, if you're looking at chaos and how to deal with chaos, I would encourage you to look at. Jim Collins looked at a bunch of companies that had done really well in 15 years from 2012 backwards. And he found that that there were a number of companies that had earnings 10 times the industry average over that very turbulent period when we had the dot-com bubble bust and the downturn in the market after 9/11, and then, of course, 2008. These companies, and you know some of them, Southwest Airlines, Microsoft, Progressive Insurance, there's a bunch of them. He only looked at the ones that had 10 times the industry average in earnings over that period. And he wanted to find out, did any of these have, do these companies, what are they doing? What do they have in common? There was a lot of diversity there, but he came up with and found 3 things that all of these companies had. It was characteristic of all these what he called 10Xers, 10 times their earnings. The first one was a fanatical discipline to stay with their core values and who they were when things started going bad. Other companies would get panicked and start taking expedient actions or leaving some of their core things and trying new stuff that was way outside of what they did. So every one of these 10Xers stayed fanatically focused even when it was hard and things were going bad. The second one was he called it empirical creativity. And that was that these companies did their research, did their homework, looked at the data before they acted. They weren't the most bold or visionary companies, but they did their work in advance in order to bound their risk when they decided to go forward. Remind me a little bit about this. In chaos, sit back and watch. Figure out where the patterns are. And when you see the opportunities, leap, but bound your risk. The third characteristic he calls they're productively paranoid. I like that concept. Productive paranoia. I had it my whole career. And productive paranoia means you expect things to go wrong, but you don't just worry about it. You take proactive action to, 1, mitigate the possibility that it'll go wrong, and 2, when it does go wrong, or when things do go wrong, you mitigate the damage that it causes to who you are. Fanatical discipline, empirical creativity, productive paranoia. Now, I've given you, that third one was the same one I'd given you earlier. So route smarters and your primary stakeholders who are here, I hope that some of my lessons about chaos and how special operations units will be useful to you. And our idea of, and I will suggest to you, carefully select the right people. And when you get the right people, keep them engaged, keep them excited about their work. Don't let them get too comfortable. And plan on things going wrong. Because while everything is going right around the corner is chaos. Thank you very much. Any questions you ever want to ask the Navy SEAL? Anything I said which you would like to know more about? Thank you, Zeb. Thanks for hanging with me. No questions? Nobody's going to ask about Lone Survivor or Women in the SEALs or No Easy Day or Act of Valor or any of those movies that have been out there. Yes, sir.
So why San Diego?
Why San Diego? Have you looked outside?
I mean, like for instance, like how do you train for Arctic?
We actually have a unit up in Kodiak, Alaska. And that's where we go for cold weather and taking SEALs across the beach on rocky, nasty, cold water. And that's important for when we train in Korea. Pretty nasty and cold up there, so that's where we go. We actually are in San Diego because this was where we established the underwater demolition teams in World War II. And we've been here since about 1943-44. And I'm actually the president, and one of my other hats, I'm the president of Old Frogs and Seals. A little group of former SEALs, and we meet quarterly here. And in my club, I've got 5 guys that were World War II vets and Korean War vets. And a couple of them have trained on the East Coast at Fort Pierce, Florida, or in Little Creek. And others have trained out here back when the Strand was just Quonset huts, 20-man tents, and sand. Does that answer your question? We go elsewhere. We don't do a lot of our training here. The guys get up, they do desert training. They go out to the desert out in Borrego Springs in that area. For cold weather training, they go up to Kodiak, or they go to Alaska, or they go up to Colorado. For this group here, when I was on the East Coast, we went elsewhere. We went to Labrador. Talk about cold, wintertime. And we go all kinds of places. We're trying to save travel dollars, and we're creating more training opportunities for ranges and stuff close by. Also to give people more time at home and not having to fly away for 3 weeks for training, come back for a week, do that for 6 months, and then go away for 7 months. Any other questions?
So she can't raise her voice. She asked me to ask you if there were any women actively in the Navy SEALs.
Are there any women in the Navy SEALs? Yes, sort of. And the sort of part is we don't have women who are Navy SEALs who have gone through that training. There is discussion of that now. It is one of the hottest topics between, I talked to one of the Master Chiefs at BUDS training just last weekend, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with the mandate that's coming down from Congress that all opportunities in the military are open to both genders. And that said, so what does that mean? We're not sure what that's going to mean. And the reality is that women are operating with SEALs in combat-like operations all the time and have been for quite a while. And all the guys that I talk to that have come back from Iraq and Afghanistan and done extensive operations says, we need more women. We need more women that can go with us into these villages and can go to these into these places, these ambiguous environments where it's not just us fighting the bad guys. It's us going in to find the bad guys in communities where there are a lot of women. And the bad guys are using women. We can't take some 6'6" guy with shoulders like this and a 26-inch waist and go to frisk a Muslim woman. It's an insult to her, to their religion, and to everybody else. We need women to be able to do that. And so that's been happening. Where we go forward so that we can make the force better while also meeting the mandates of Congress is still good people are looking at lots of options. And we all recognize we need women to work with our special ops forces, and they're doing that. What's the best way to institutionalize it so they actually have a career pattern? We can train them properly to do what they do, and they can work together with the guys.
So, since you asked about the Marcus Luttrell's story of the lone survivor, your thoughts on that?
I actually wrote a review of the movie. I read the book. Has anybody who read the book, Lone Survivor? A few of you have. And anybody who's seen the movie? A few of you have as well. What I didn't like about the book was the whole first part of it was a little bit of chest beating about SEALs being the greatest thing in the world and all that. And he kind of drunk the Kool-Aid. There was a little bit of that going on sometimes. And I think his ghostwriter was using that to pump up the book. His story of what happened once they got in trouble was actually quite good. And with a lot of the guys in the SEAL teams, just skip the whole first half of the book to just read what happened there. The movie, I thought, was really good up to the point where the other three guys were killed and he is then on his own. And then I thought that Hollywood started taking over, and their ending itself was really funny. The quality of the movie up to that point, though, was good enough to where I recommend people see it, but recognizing that having the cavalry come in over the mountains just in the nick of time to save the day was like it was taken right out of a 1950s Western movie, and it did not reflect the reality of what was actually happening on the ground. The reality was actually much more interesting, and I just don't know why Hollywood did that.
How much joint cooperation do the SEALs have with the Royal Marine Special Boat Squadron?
Why do you ask? just kidding. It sounds like you have a lot. As a matter of fact, when I first came into SEAL Team 2, I started off and I graduated from training, went to underwater demolition team, then I went to SEAL Team 2. The guys who trained me in my field craft were Royal Marines. And there's an ongoing Royal Marine Navy SEAL exchange program. And in my last Old Frogs and SEALs meeting, we had a SEAL Master Chief who had been assigned to the Royal Marines and went into war at the early part of the war in Afghanistan in 2003, 2002, 2003, and had an amazing story. Was nominated for the Victoria Cross, working with the Royal Marines. We have a very close relationship with the Royal Marines, have for going back to the 60s. And all of the exchange officers that we've sent over there and they've sent to us have frequently gone up the ladder, like I did with the Germans. We've had this relationship with the Germans. In my growing up, I probably worked with special operations, maritime special operations counterparts of probably 25 countries. The Norwegians, the Brits, the Dutch, the Danish, the Belgians, the French, the Italians. My son served with the Poles over in Afghanistan. So we have a lot of that going on. And are we ready to take one more question? If there's one more question, I will take it. Does that answer your question? Doesn't look like there's another question.
I just want to say thank you very much for your service.
Thank you for paying my salary. And it was, a great pleasure. I had a great time. And in my time in the Navy, I loved it. I loved the opportunity to do all the things I got to do. I got to tell you a couple of those stories. And as a result of that, after 30 years, I get a comfortable, not lavish, but a comfortable retirement benefit or a pension that allows me to kind of do this sort of thing and really meet people like yourself and not have to go to the salt mines every single morning. And I want you to all have a great conference. This is going to be, I've met some neat people there. I also speak on developing an elite corporate culture. And the people I've talked to here, the stakeholders of RouteSmart and the people from RouteSmart, I need to talk to Brad a little bit because I think that I want to use some examples from RouteSmart when I go as a positive examples when I talk to other companies about improving their cultures and creating a great sense of service and camaraderie within their organizations. I talk about developing a sense of focus, a sense of purpose, a sense of trust, a sense of focus, and a sense of camaraderie as essential to having an elite culture, and I sense that in this room. Thank you.